You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Folks, it is springtime. I know that because my allergies are acting up from all the pollen around me. Taking Claritin constantly. I would take 3 of those a day if I could.
Zoot tight.
But I am not allergic to footwear, my friends, and I think that's why you're all joining us today, because this is the Footwear Industries podcast. We cover all things footwear, all types of products, all types of processes. We've really been drilling into the hot topics over the past year or so. One thing keeps popping up, Matt, is around sustainability and how eco-conscious the industry is now around its product and its processes. And I think it's a topic that continually gets brought up in C-suites now, where several years ago we wouldn't have ever heard it. It constantly gets brought up in the factories now, in design, throughout every single process now of many of our companies now. The challenge is trying to actually execute against it, right? I think that's kind of the hard part. Is that what you're hearing also from executives when you talk to them?
Yeah, totally, Andy. And it is by far the hottest topic that we're dealing with. We, as an organization that tracks what the industry's facing, we can tell you kind of, it's trade, or it's diversity inclusion, or it's chemical safety, and all those things are really important things that we're focused on as well. But this issue in particular and the initiatives that we're driving have been of keen importance to the industry. And that's why Kelly Burton, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Material Exchange, is with us today to help continue the conversation to ensure that our listeners are on the right track as they think about sustainability and some of the tools Material Exchange is rolling out. So, Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Nice to be with you both.
So, as Chief Sustainability Officer, sustainability is your number one issue too, I suspect. It's just a hunch. Talk to me about what your clients are saying right now as it relates to the sustainability initiatives from a broad sense.
Well, everybody's talking about scarcity. We're talking about scarcity of sustainable cotton, obviously, because of the Uyghur situation, and how can brands who have made commitments around sourcing for sustainable or preferred materials can actually find them. So I'm super excited to be part of that solution and to help Material Exchange be part of that solution. So I think a lot of the listeners are somewhere along the sustainable journey, and I think it's really compelling wherever you jump in that people just start to do it. And one of the ways that I think a lot of brands find easy to kind of begin that progress is to start transitioning materials from legacy materials and kind of conventional materials, if we like that word, into more sustainable or preferred or even innovative fibers. So finding those materials, making that transition is a challenge, and Material Exchange is here to kind of solve that pain point.
Yeah, so let's get into that, because I think, as you said, the traceability issue is very key, making sure brands are not sourcing from places that may have human rights abuses or slave labor in the supply chain, et cetera. So tracking those suppliers, not just your factory, but those suppliers, is extremely difficult. We have a lot of Excel sheets in our industry that try to do that. But unless you're keeping up with those constantly and you're tagging the certifications to the suppliers in your column and rows and things like that, things can get missed very easily, and it's very difficult. And then also around, as you said, the environmentally preferred material aspect is, more and more brands are having pressure from investors, not just consumers, but investors now, around how a business is acting towards the environment and what type of product they have. How are they improving their environmental performances around their products, cycle by cycle, month by month, quarter by quarter. So there's some really interesting forces that are coming to bear that I don't think we've had in the past, which in turn are creating those conversations in the C-suite like we've never heard before. But I'm very interested in the Material Exchange because when it launched, we were focused a lot on helping the suppliers and build that, and it's transformed into where I think the value is for brands and the suppliers today is one is the communication back and forth around certifications and audits and making sure that they're plugged in and understand the sustainability aspects that brands need, their standards, but also being able to promote those new materials that they have so people can find them. Because as you say, it's really difficult to look around and say, what can I get to add to my shoe that makes me take that extra step forward? So, maybe you can explain a little bit about what more in depth, what you guys are working on and how that functions within Material Exchange.
Sure, I'm happy to. So we can start with the boardroom. Like, we can really start about risk and mitigating risk and what some of the brands are kind of being asked to do on behalf of the board and behalf of their senior management, which is really to kind of adhere to some of the financial reporting and getting the sustainability reporting aligned with financial reporting. We're quite lucky. Well, I think we're lucky that Larry Fink kind of laid down the gauntlet from the investor community, Larry Fink being the CEO of BlackRock, and really has called to our industry what he expects in terms of financial reporting, and he's asking for SASB. And luckily, SASB reporting, when it comes to that, is only asking for 4 pieces. Only. But SASB is really only asking our industry, footwear and apparel, to report on their chemical management. So do you have a chemical management system in place? So the way that Material Exchange can help that or support that, to your end or to your comment about Excel spreadsheets, there's a lot of Excel spreadsheets and there's a lot of kind of teams working on this. But really, it comes down to the raw material sourcing person to really kind of make that evaluation at the supplier side. So when it comes to sustainable sourcing and certifications, this sustainable search tool is going to really kind of put together certifications as well as branded fibers. So I'll give you an example. When it comes to recycled content, and a lot of brands have pledged for recycled content, then we will pull together materials that are GRS or RCS certified, as well as a lot of the branded materials that have recycled content as part of their DNA, like Polylana, for example, which is 100% recycled poly. And so putting those two together, it means that if you have your raw material sourcing people not really kind of at the top level of sustainable knowledge, it's not necessary anymore. They can do sustainability search because we've built the tools to support them. And then the other 2 components that SASB is expecting are also kind of verified through certifications on the platform. So we understand the pain points that sourcing people are going through to meet these requirements. And we're trying to erase those pain points and really kind of make sourcing easier. I'll just say one last thing. We don't go beyond the materials section. We're really a tier 2 tool. However, we're really working on, we have this idea that a rising tide lifts all boats. So we're really trying to be agnostic when it comes to traceability, and any sort of traceability tool, whether it's Oratane or Textile Genesis or anything that's going back to the field or to the raw material sourcing at the raw material point, we're going to try and patch through. So if people have it, they're trying to take in Oratane or any of those tracking mechanisms into their PLM, that will pass it through Material Exchange and make sure that that shows up from the field to their PLM system.
Kelly, that's awesome, because I think when we think about discovery, this is kind of a new frontier for all of us, and some of our members are further out on the range than others. And Andy can attest to this, just talking kind of consistently with footwear companies about where they find themselves in this journey. Many people don't even have a roadmap yet, and they're trying to figure all that out. So it just sounds, as you talk about a clearinghouse for folks to come and engage with Material Exchange just for the discovery process, which is so difficult in something that's highly technical in a lot of ways. Talk to me about how important the search tool will serve a need, that pain point, when it just comes to discovery and then sifting through what the right materials are for the project that each of these folks is focused on.
That's a great question, Matt. And like I said, it's a journey, and we recognize that different brands are at different stages of that journey. So let's talk about leather, right? Leather is a real, it's a challenging one for sourcing people. And I think it's challenging because there are some programs in place, and some of the programs, maybe aren't covering exactly what the consumer is asking for, which is they want to know the health and well-being of the bovine in the field, or, so there's a lot of kind of opportunity when it comes to leather. So in this search criteria, we've made a category called Better Leather, and it really recognizes both what's going on at the facility level, so recognizing LWG and all the work that they've done to make facilities better and enhance the technology when it comes to producing leather. But also there's a lot of other programs. There's a program out of Germany that's trying to work on water. There's Deborah's program with the Sustainable Leather Foundation. And so we're recognizing that there are different, just as the brands are at different stages of the journey, that there are different stages of the journey within the supply chain, and that we are agnostic to one being better than another. So what that means is that when it comes to discovery, when you come to material exchange and you look up Better Leather, then you'll be given the array of certifications from around the world, programs from around the world that are working on this. And then you can fine tune whatever your pledge is or whatever your commitment is. If it's around water, then you can fine tune and lean towards those certificates or those programs that are Better Leather and water attentive. Or if it's really about, labor, then you can attune to which certificates or which suppliers are Better Leather and attune to social compliance. So really kind of letting you start with the whole pool and then narrow down as you refine your goals as a sustainable sourcing person, you can start to refine your materials. But for the beginning, we will give you everything, but not in an overwhelming way. Like really kind of, we create one aisle way. If we think about the traditional trade shows, we're just going to create like one aisle that is going to give you exactly what you need, but it'll be the whole aisle. And then as you refine what it is you're looking for, then that aisle will shorten, and then you'll get exactly what you need.
I think what's really interesting about that, Kelly, is every brand and every company we talk to have different standards, right? And part of it is price point, part of it is product, part of it is the retail partners asking them to have certain standards. So sometimes they have multiple standards depending on who they're selling to, who their customers are. And I think that's a real opportunity where people can build their own standards within material exchange, where they can have that flexibility to say, we really are focused on plastic. So how do we use this to take out plastics and find materials with less plastics, or better materials that are recycled, or less wasted water, more energy efficiency, things like that people can build programs around, and then have teams work together around that, so that in many ways, because it's technology, you can siphon them off of saying, we only want you to look at these suppliers or look at these materials. So I think when people are, because sometimes, and I know you have it too, because you not only do this for material exchange, but you're teaching at Harvard about sustainability and sustainability fashion practices, and you consult for a wide range of companies. I feel like even if you dip your toe in, or even if you're along the journey, there's still these moments where there's a deer in the headlight, where you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is such a big thing. How do I scope it down? Not just for me, but for all the people that are around me that don't specialize in some of these things that we're talking about. So I think this tool is going to be really helpful, not just for the sourcing people, but for the culture. And I think that's really where we need to get at as an industry. Is it's great to select a better material. It's great to build a better shoe with multiple materials. It's probably best to have a culture where the teams are focused on that intensely and passionate about that, making shoes. Is that, are we headed, how do you feel about that? How important is a culture to the success of actually not just ticking the boxes, but actually making a company that succeeds on sustainability, but also in innovation and operations?
I mean, Well, you've asked me like several questions embedded in one question.
How we do this.
So I think, yes, it's true. Like being in the classroom currently, like I'm teaching a course right now, and there's going to be another one at part of the Harvard Summer School. It keeps me in tune because I have a lot of career professionals in my class. I have a lot of the FDRA members. Somebody on the team is in my class. So I have a real sense of what the struggle is. And I think that you've articulated the struggle really well, which is it's a sense of overwhelming possibility and getting, as you said, a deer in the headlights with the possibility of what you could do and how you could source better. And so what we wanted to do, and what I really worked hard with the team at Material Exchange, is to really kind of bring it down to the very basic level. So that's why these are buckets, basically: recycled content, sustainable cotton, better leather. Like so start anywhere, and depending then on what's going on internally, what's going on in terms of how much you can push that bucket, you get to refine it to other things. So if you're, as I said earlier, like with better leather, you can search just the hide and you can search like better leather, or you can say, you know what, we also have a program around social compliance. So I would love to see the icing on the cake, and I would like to search for great leather from a facility that has a social compliance program in place, right? Or I'd like to search for sustainable cotton. We're building a nearshoring search tool. So I'd like to search for better cotton, or sustainable cotton, that is within 1,000 miles of my manufacturing facility because I'm worried about carbon. So you can just start to build in this search criteria, maybe as aspiration. So that's the thing about being a SaaS-enabled platform, is that we have the data. So we're also trying to backfill into the suppliers and the facilities about what the industry is looking for. So we're trying to use this search tool as a lever, as a market lever, to say, you know what, we get a lot of inquiries for X. And wouldn't it be great if you did this, and just try to give the suppliers kind of the market response to what is happening around sustainability. So we had X number of searches this month for sustainable cotton. So we need more suppliers, and just use that data for what data was meant to be captured for, to really kind of facilitate and grow the industry. The other thing is that we're opening up probably closer to the end of 2021, but we're going to have private marketplaces, which is where brands can come in and just really, set the stakes in the soil about what they're looking for. So they only want to see suppliers who meet this criteria and that criteria to come through the door into their private marketplace, which is fantastic because it means that, first of all, you can bring your whole cache of suppliers, but then as you grow and make your pledges and make your expectations, you can then communicate to your suppliers that you want them to grow. So, for example, right now we have a hosted marketplace for Kingpins, which is the denim trade show. They have an expectation that everybody in their supplier list would be on ZDHC, which is the zero discharge of hazardous chemicals. So there's a hazardous chemical management program in play. And then over the next couple of months, it's not just going to be that they're registered on the gateway with ZDHC, but they're actually moving one step further with ZDHC. So you can only get into the platform if you've done that extra step. So there's a real opportunity here, I think, for the brands to start getting the suppliers, whether that's through carrot or stick, to kind of increase their investment and their attention to some of these criteria that the brands really need them to pay attention to.
Yeah, I agree, because I think one of the biggest challenges is if you're out there searching and no one has that criteria you're looking for, we can help build that, because these suppliers will get pinged by multiple companies saying, no, you really need to do leather working group, or you really need to do recycled standards. And when they start seeing that, it reinforces, oh my gosh, like, okay, like we really need to do this, but we don't know how, right? Because some of these groups that are out there are doing really good work, but they're not marketing machines that can go out to every facility and tell these people who they are and why they should get involved. It requires the brands to push and pull and hopefully provide support where needed to get these suppliers up. But in doing so, as a unit, as a collective whole, as our industry, we can better train our suppliers and better increase our standards bit by bit across all these different levels. And I think technology is a great way to do that because, obviously in this world, FDRA is doing all our events digital and has for the last year. And so it's easy to do digital training now. We don't necessarily have to fly out unless we're doing an audit or send someone locally. We can do it. We can build these training platforms and help all these different organizations and certifications and auditors figure out how to help all our suppliers. So it's not just helping search and find. What Material Exchange is really doing is building the capacity over time to make everything better in our supply chain, which I think is a great mission, and I know is going to be a great tool. And I already know many footwear companies using this, using it now, and looking forward to the new capabilities that they're going to have, because the material people are they're doing a lot of work right now, and it's really difficult. And there's a lot on their shoulders, and not just them, but the sourcing teams and the development and execution teams too. So we look forward to seeing all the new tools and technologies that you guys are going to launch. At this point, I want to bring in Jasmine Pendergrass, who is our fashion guru. And I don't know what we're doing today, Jasmine, but you got a professor of fashion sustainability. And I think I'll say this before we kick into this, and Jasmine, I don't want to step on your toes on this, but I think what's really interesting about sustainability is if we had this conversation 5 years ago, people would think of product that's not that dynamic. And nowadays, I've got a pair of Nikes upstairs that's 25%, the whole shoe by weight, recycled. And it's using like a marble. They took the recycled material and made it look like a marble. So we see this really interesting fashion coming that is sustainable. And I'm pretty excited about that, to have those conversations where it's good for the environment and it's still super cool for the consumer as well.
Right. Well, that does kind of tie into what I was going to talk about.
There you go.
It's almost a twofold question that hopefully Kelly will have some input in. So I was reading an article where they were showing some photos of Katy Perry with her new footwear line. I think she's had a footwear line for maybe about 4 or 5 years now. And they were saying she's bringing the big toe sandal back. And I laughed at the headline because I'm like, what is that? But then when I looked at the photos, I'm like, oh, that's when they just had the one strap around your big toe on the sandal. I totally forgot about that style when I was younger. It was super popular. So one, I was going to ask you, Kelly, do you wear that style on the normal, or did you wear it back in the day? Do you like that style? I personally like a little bit more of a protective sandal, so I like a big strap around my foot. I don't like having my feet that bare. And then 2, are there any sustainable footwear that you're thinking about getting for the summertime? Is that a big factor in the hotter months, sustainability for you?
Wow, that's a great question, Jasmine. I'm trend driven. I love trends. I love the retread of trends. So when they've gone out and they come back again, I know that style. My mother used to wear that style. It's sometimes problematic because if it doesn't fit your big toe correctly, you can be prone to some blisters. So it's not a long walking shoe. It's more of a sit on a patio and have a few glasses of wine kind of shoe. But I think anytime celebrities get involved with kind of endorsing or working on styles, it's really exciting, especially as more and more celebrities kind of come out with their own kind of green roadmap. So if a celebrity is vegan, then there's going to be a vegan introduction. So I think all of that is really exciting. What am I excited about for spring? I would love to sit on a patio in any kind of shoe, to be honest. I'm ready for people. I'm ready for seeing people and kind of having COVID be over, and I'm okay with any kind of shoe.
Okay, that works for me. I'm on the same boat. I'm actually just buying more and more shoes for preparing myself for the time. I have a bunch of unworn shoes that I've bought over the past year that I am ready to have the world see soon.
Amazing.
Awesome. Well, folks, this is the Shoe In Show. We thank you for joining us. If you go to shoeinshow.com, you'll see nearly 300 episodes of industry leaders and experts we've interviewed over the last 5 years. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for 5 years now. We were doing podcasts before podcasts were cool, and now they're super cool. And we are the super coolest shoe podcast out there for our focus, which is the footwear industry on the business side, which I'm particularly interested in. And I hope everybody out there found this conversation super fascinating as to how technology is really changing how we can be more sustainable, but also increase sustainability of our suppliers and partners, raising all our standards. So, Kelly, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights and all your knowledge and the participation that you have in our industry to help pull some people up, push some people up, encourage, etc. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Andy. Thanks, Jasmine.
Thanks, Kelly.
Absolutely. And folks, as always, again, shoeinshow.com is the website, but we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, any audio platform that plays podcast, we are there. So please go back and listen to any of the episodes you find of note. If you have an idea for a guest or a topic, go to shoeinshow.com. At the bottom left-hand side, there's a little voice note. You can click on that button and leave us a note. You can leave us comments on our shows about how much you love our shows and you love our hosts, or how much you love Jasmine. We get those all the time. More Jasmine than me, which is fine. Or you can just drop us a line about, topics and things that you would like us to discuss. Because ultimately, this is the Footwear Industry's podcast. We want to talk about what is of interest and a hot topic and help people think a little bit differently about their processes to do a little bit better and more good environmentally, but also make better product, sell better product, have better channels, have better bottom lines at the end of the day. So, as always, thank you for listening. Until next Monday when the new episode comes out, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.